Welcome to the Zero Waste Asia Newsroom. I'm Sonia Astudillo, Senior Communications Officer for GAIA Asia Pacific. We're still here at the Global Plastics Week negotiations, and before we dive into negotiation talks, let's move our attention outside the negotiation rooms. Joining me is Arpita Bhagat, GAIA Asia Pacific's Plastic Policy Officer, who will walk us through the corridors of Shaw Center. So Arpita, hi, how are you?
Not too bad. Oh, how is everyone?
Okay, so Arpita, third day into the negotiations, and several people are still talking about the industry ads that welcome delegates at the airport and the ads around Ottawa promoting plastics. What is going on here? At a press briefing yesterday on fossil fuel and chemical industry footprint at INC-4, Yuyun Ispawati of Nexus 3 questioned this, and to quote Yuyun, she said, "This kind of advertising is not ethical in this time of negotiation." What can you say about that?
Yeah, even just as you were speaking, I'm standing in the corner of Shaw Center. The truck with the messaging of this false advertising just passed by, and this truck keeps going around in these areas around where the delegates are staying, and it basically talks about recycling being the solution and how plastic is necessary in healthcare and for food safety and so on. So it's becoming a very very David versus Goliath story here, and very visibly so. It was not so visible in Nairobi, but the amount of advertising, the amount of both print advertising as well as the visual advertising that's happening here is definitely getting more and more. It's definitely shameless. It's definitely against the I think the spirit of international cooperation and the spirit of diplomatic relations. And some of these advertising even question the need for a UN sort of mandate, and it's even brutally saying we don't need it. There is a cross on top of it, and it's brutal. They've also hired individuals with ads who are walking around talking about how plastics are necessary. There are also a lot of industry folks who are hosting dinners, who are having bilaterals, who are trying to woo the member states, if I could say that. So it's really becoming very visible. Of course, we also have our side, the movement, who's doing a lot of protest, a lot of actions, and non-direct violent action, as Greenpeace calls it, with the tap installation, with the cookie activity, with the march that happened that was so powerful, with hundreds of people joining from across the world, calling for a cutting of production. So it's kind of very visible sort of fight that we can see in Canada, and it's something that we've tried to inquire who are the agencies behind it. There are also new websites that have been created to kind of push the false agenda. I don't remember the names at the moment, but there are at least, I think, 10 websites right now that have just emerged out of nowhere in Canada, which are talking about how great plastics are.
Wow, that's very interesting. And people are also raising concerns about the disposables being used by the catering service here at Shaw Centers. These are not plastic, but still single use. So would you like to comment what is being done about this?
Yeah, I mean, this is completely contrary to why we are here. And the idea of cutting and stopping plastics production from growing at the rate that it is, and definitely phasing out hazardous polymers and chemicals, and banning single-use plastics and so on. The idea is not to move away from plastics and use more, single-use material, whether it is bio-based plastics or compostable plastics, and all of these false ideas, or paper for that matter, because we are trying to transition away from this, disposable lifestyles towards, zero waste lifestyle. And that does not, as long as material will continue to be produced, there will be more pollution, whether we produce more of paper or cotton, the chemicals, the agriculture practices, all of those counter in. Besides that, Sonia, the idea of, what looks like a paper cup, what looks like a paper bowl, does not necessarily mean there is no plastics. Often there's a thin coating, and of course we don't have even clarity of what that coating is. Most people don't even realize that there is plastic in it. Most people don't even know what kind of plastic, what kind of chemicals, and because there is no standard here yet, which is why we need a treaty. So when a UN meeting uses single use at the scale that it is kind of using right now, it is really disappointing. We were not expecting this, especially when we are, halfway through the dedicated timeline to draft this instrument. So folks are concerned, folks are pointing it out, people are calling it out. There are people who are preparing draft statements, sort of calling this out, that we do not want single-use material promoted in a conference like this. This treaty, we have to remember, and this is what struck me from the very first day when we started talking amongst ourselves as CSOs. This treaty is not an environmental treaty alone. This treaty is, of course, about plastic, which is chemicals and waste. But this treaty fundamentally is about environmental health. So we want to start using this idea that this is an environmental health treaty. This is not just about environment alone. It is about people's well-being. And single-use material is not in favor of either the planet or the people. And we need transparency of these chemicals that are used in the production of this material, but also across the life cycle in the form of what we call as non-additionally added substances. So it's a concern. It's not what we expected. This venue itself has been difficult, to say the least. We were not expecting to come to a country like Canada and experience Wi-Fi issues, experience issues with, just seating, experiencing issues with not having enough tables to sit. The chairs themselves, are the least comfortable chairs, and of course, they're constantly having to figure out why the mics are not working. They're constantly having to change venues due to so many technical issues. So this does not feel like a UN space at all at this point. And that completely takes me back to INC-3 in Nairobi, which felt like a UN meeting. It was at UN headquarters. There was there was a canteen which did not use single-use plastic. So we had proper cutlery and everything else. So this is like a step back in that sense.
Mhm. And the Wi-Fi connection is also. Okay, so now let's talk about the civil society organization participation. So how is it for CSOs, considering that a Canada visa is not accessible to everyone and Canada is a very expensive country?
Yeah, I think this is something that I have pointed out earlier as well, especially for us from Asia and the Pacific. Getting here has been such a big task. People have taken from anything from a day to 3 days to get here, and experiencing flight delays, experiencing, personal losses of things. But more than that, the funding and the resources to get here has been a biggest limitation. And it's very important, of course, as civil society to show up in these spaces because they have the overwhelming industry presence, as the analysis yesterday has shown, as 37% more than the last INC. But also civil society needs to be here so that we are able to guide and advocate for the kind of treaty we want. So I know there are certain members of our delegation who have to go early because of cost issues. I know there are some folks who could not be here because they didn't get visa in time. And I know folks who struggle to find accommodation that is affordable. So it's not been easy getting here. It's not been easy staying here. It's also not been easy sometimes, in terms of the climate, because as Asians, very few of us have the climate this cold or this dry. So a lot of us, few of us are also not well. And we are trying to do our best. We're trying to help each other. We are trying to, work in shifts so that everybody's not working all the time. Like yesterday itself, for example, the meetings went on till 11:30 in the night, and they started, I believe, sometime at 9 when the regional meetings began. And today we expect to again have a long day, which goes on till at least 11. And this is the official schedule.
And it changes all the time. No? So what is the general sentiment of our CSO delegation?
Most of us are feeling quite cold. Today is a great sunny day, so today has been a respite. I was not expecting this sunnier day, so I don't know. I think I'm over cushioned this morning, but we are hopeful. We are optimistic. We are trying to do as many direct engagements with our delegates possible. There is growing interest. There is growing. I think delegates themselves are realizing the need for help with understanding the text, because there is so much text and so much text being negotiated. So, and the other thing is also that from some countries in Asia, there's only one delegate or two. So it's also becoming very hard for them to kind of be in everywhere at the same time. So usually you have two contact groups going on at the same time. It could be from two subgroups. It could be from different contact groups. That means one could be talking about the core obligation, the other could be talking about some provision on means of implementation. So it's being difficult, but I see members doing amazing, speaking at events and being present when there is a need to do that, doing bilaterals between countries, and trying to ensure that the ambitious countries are understanding each other's views, sort of helping each other even with technical expertise. And what great moment we had yesterday, for example, in the night on in the discussion on production cuts. I believe in one of the subgroups, our LBNL, the study that GAIA supported with the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory study on which was quoted by one of the delegates. So that was a pleasant surprise, and we've been having some pleasant surprises here. So we are still hopeful, and there is much more to look forward to. It's just been, I think today is the 4th day of negotiations, and we will have a plenary this evening where there will be report back on the progress the different subgroups have made. So yeah, so far everything has been going very smoothly without much procedural hiccups. But yeah, we're experiencing technical hiccups this time. So the new place, new experiences.
Okay. So are there other updates, good and bad, that we want our viewers to know? And also, what's the agenda for today?
So there is a lot of hope in the room. There is a lot of surprises that are coming in from places we didn't expect. The discussion, in terms of the discussion themselves, I think as far as means of implementation is concerned, we have the final discussion remaining on financial mechanism because it's such a big text and it's so hard to kind of get through it. Right, this is the third time we are still discussing financial mechanism. And in terms of the contact group, one where core obligations are discussed, we started with just transition. We discussed the scope, the objective, the preamble, I think is still to be discussed. And most of the obligations from 7 to 12 as well, which includes waste management, EPR, emissions, and exemptions as well. And now the discussion currently, as I speak to you, is happening on the first two provisions, which are the most crucial ones, which is primarily plastic polymers and chemicals of concern. So the subgroup co-facilitators are trying very hard to go through this first reading. So basically what's happening right now is we have the text in the revised zero draft. To each round of reading, this text is getting streamlined. That means member states are suggesting what they prefer, what text within a particular provision they prefer, and what text they do not. So based on that, there is going to be suggestions on bracketing and potentially cleaning up the text, removing repetitions, removing duplications, removing text which currently is not favorable. And also some member states are suggesting to move certain text up in the chapter in the beginning or move it down and things like that. So there are sort of streamlined text outcomes that are coming out every day. And these are open to public, so you can visit the UNEP website, you can go to the section on in-session documents, and you can see, as each day what kind of streamlining that's happening. There are also member states who are making submissions, which are also visible. So you can go to the country section and you can see the submission from member states. So we know a lot of submissions are coming from Asia as well as other parts of the world. So all of this is up for people to see, but what is actually being discussed or who's saying what is not something that I can speak because they're protected under the Chatham House rules. But overall, the progress in terms of getting through this revised zero draft is very on schedule. So we are glad about that.
Thank you so much, Arpita, for sharing your insights. So to our listeners, please join us again tomorrow as we give you more updates from the Global Plastics Treaty negotiations. For ongoing updates and highlights from the negotiations, follow Zero Waste Asia on Instagram and YouTube, and GAIA Asia Pacific on Facebook and LinkedIn. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to giving you more updates tomorrow.
Yes, hopefully plenary should give us more updates that we can talk about.
Thanks, Arpita.